Hi, I'm Zach, and over the past 6 years, I've managed over $580,000 in Facebook ad spend. Now, over the years, I've learned a ton of lessons, but today I'm going to be sharing them here in hopes of saving you some time. Let's go ahead and get into it. Now, the most important things when it comes to Facebook ads are, firstly, the offer, which means that if you have something that is actually quite low quality, you're not going to have enough profit, then you're going to have a very hard time, especially when starting out. And as you go on, it's just going to get even harder. As well as the higher the profit margin, the easier you can make it and fit the advertising costs into the product price. Now, even the best marketing in the world is not going to make your product or offering any better than it really is. So if it sucks, you're just going to find out even faster. It's like rocket fuel, I've heard Gary Vee call it. Now, this video isn't going to go deep into what makes a good product or a good offer. Now, for help with that, I would actually recommend reading Alex Hormozi's $100 Million Offers. It's a really good book. But interestingly, most people are actually worried about targeting. Now, the more important thing is actually the ad creative. Now, for some reason, because people are thinking that it's targeting that is the most important, they end up believing that either their ideal customer is not on Facebook. So this is one side of the spectrum. They think the person is just not on Facebook, not on Instagram, which is quite hilarious because Facebook now has over 3 billion users and Instagram has more than 2 billion users. So that is quite unlikely at this point. So it just doesn't make much sense. The other side of the spectrum is that people then go too narrow on their targeting when they aren't experienced enough to do so. I avoid narrow targeting usually even. Now, the reason I would say you should not probably worry about targeting is because that is actually one thing that Facebook's algorithms are already really good at. And if we're using the platform, we might as well take advantage of the things that it's good at. So it would be better to actually make your ad very specific and then let Facebook's algorithms find the people that would be most interested in your ad, instead of trying to perhaps make a low quality ad, not put much effort into it, and then try to force it in front of the people that you want it in front of. Now, it might work, but it's going to be extremely expensive because if you think about it, engaging ads are going to keep people using Facebook, staying on the platform, be happy buying the products that they got through that ad. What's going to happen with low quality ads? Well, people see them, they aren't interested, they aren't engaged. So that is more likely going to cause them to leave the platform. So of course, Facebook cares most about keeping people on the platform. So you should avoid anything that would cause them to not be on the platform. So because of that negative outcome, they make it very expensive for you to continue running low quality ads. And on the opposite side, if your ad is very engaging and people like it, they will want to show it to more people. So you will actually experience lower ad costs. Which then brings us to the question, what makes a high quality piece of creative? Now, high quality creative is just creative that is very clear and expresses its value. It doesn't mean that it needs to look like it was done from a $1 million film studio, high production value. It also doesn't need to be something that's hacky or tricking people using very, let's say, just too much marketing tactics. It could be something as simple as a photo of a t-shirt on a model, or maybe it could be a screen recording of your SaaS app in action, highlighting a benefit or fixing of a pain point for the customer or potential customer. Whatever it takes to express the value quickly to a consumer. It could even just be something that is funny and then relates to your product, because when you give the consumer a chance to be entertained, that is also a form of value. Now, I can't give you a very specific ad format that is going to work for your company without actually sitting down, talking to you, analyzing your product and the competition. But I just want to reassure you that if you run an ad and it doesn't work right away, that is 100% normal. Even for people that are experienced, much more experienced than I, it is always going to be an iterative process. Now, even the best advertisers, they're constantly testing new ideas, new creative. That being said, you should actually expect to have to keep upgrading your ad. When I was teaching myself how to run Facebook ads, I actually spent $5,000 of my own money figuring it out, because of course I had no experience. So nobody else was going to give me money to manage. So I had to spend my own money. Now, you don't need to do that, but I'm just showing you that it is a learning process. It can take a little bit of time. And so you shouldn't be disappointed if you had an idea that you're really excited about and it just doesn't work right away. It is totally normal, but that's why we're in the business game. We're trying to do something that is difficult for a better outcome. You also need to do all of the applicable objectives for your business type. You should try them all, such as conversions versus leads, messenger ads. For example, one client I tried continuously to try and make website conversions work for them. And it just didn't work. And I'm not saying it can't work, but it didn't work back then with my level of experience then. We then switched to messenger ads, and then they started making sales right away. So what can we learn from that? Well, for that product, it was a very high touch product, very, very high ticket. The customer wanted to be very involved in the process. There was a lot of questions. So it made sense why messenger ads worked really well for them. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to use messenger ads and talk to lots of people, but it's just, it shows the example of a different ad format working better for a different type of business. So don't be afraid to try out new formats. And now another point. One thing I would recommend is do not try and trick Facebook. Not that they'll punish you. It's actually quite the opposite. They will give you exactly what you ask for. Problem is, you asked for the wrong thing. For example, one common tactic that used to be recommended and still gets recommended, but maybe a little bit less so nowadays, is to try and run traffic ads, for example, to their website, because usually they're cheaper, and then using that traffic to train the Facebook pixel to find the ideal customer, and then run purchase ads, kind of like you're investing in the future targeting. But that, it just doesn't really work that well anymore. And it's kind of a waste of time now. Facebook, if you ask it for traffic, it is going to give you traffic, not conversion traffic. They're different things. They charge a different price for it. Also, just the type of person that likes to browse as opposed to the type of person who wants to buy that particular thing, because they are very different types of people. Like the type of person who signs up for a subscription service may not be the same type of person that signs up for a high ticket product, which may not be the same type of person who buys teddy bears on e-commerce websites. Like, they are all different people and even different behaviors within the product categories. So you really want to be specific with Facebook as to what you want. So be specific. And these things are always changing. So if you find that I'm not being very specific with what ads for you to set up, or where the buttons are, or I'm not doing a video tutorial of how to set something up in the ads manager, these things are changing all the time. Anybody that's worked with Facebook for a decent chunk of time knows that the Facebook ads manager and the Facebook business manager is always changing, usually not for the better. So I won't get too deep into those levels of specifics, but yes, if one ad format, and this is a new point, if one ad format is working for you, you don't have to go and use other ones to make more money. You can literally make millions of dollars off of one format. If you want to diversify, though, you absolutely can. By all means, go ahead. But it is not required. You do not have to keep making new different types of formats. You should always be testing new creatives. But like customers, some clients, they can just run messenger ads all day, every day, and make money that way for years. So that can be you as well. Now, the next point, the number of creatives that you can run fully depends on your budget. So make sure that you set a reasonable budget to see results, but don't overspend. It will not help you learn faster. Now, one common question is about the Facebook ads budget or the recommended Facebook ads budget. Technically, you can spend as little as $1 a day, I believe, is the absolute lowest that you can spend. The most you can spend, I don't even know of an upper limit. It starts getting down to like what your bank allows and what your credit cards will allow. I don't know that Facebook does have their set limits so that you can't incur a really high bill and then not pay it. So they will make sure to keep charging you for their safety. But the range for learning, what I would recommend for learning Facebook ads is from $300 to $3,000 a month. Now, I understand that's a big range, but the reason is you want to allow enough ad spend to go through each ad creative before you determine whether you should keep it or not. For example, you could start with a budget of $10 a day, but at that low of a budget, I would keep it to one ad set at a time with one ad inside of it. You don't have to follow this as a rule, but that's just what I would do. That, and like I said, that is so that you can get enough ad budget to that specific creative in order to make a decision. You could do the same thing. You could spend $10 on 3 ads, but now you're only spending $3 on this ad, $3 on this ad, $3 on this ad, $3.33, I know. But so that wouldn't be really enough, because then you're only going to be seen by maybe 100 people per day per ad. It's not that many people, and you shouldn't be making serious decisions, which is whether this ad creative works or not, off of very small data. And basically the smaller the budget, the longer you would want to let it run. So you're trying to do like sort of a balancing act, and the goal is to collect enough data over a sustained period of time. But there is a limit on the upper side to learning. As you scale up your spend to $3,000 a month, for example, you still have to keep managing your ad spend so that each ad creative is getting enough budget. Each individual ad is getting enough share of the budget, and you would want to continue to cut the losers and let the winners run, ideally scaling those winners up as you're going. Now, you can keep increasing the budget on ads that are working really well, on ad creatives that are working really well. But when you're testing out new ones, you need to make sure that they get or receive a minimum amount. And I would recommend about $10 a day, just so that you're getting seen by a good number of people. So our recommendation at Braxter would be to do $3,000 a month in your monthly ad spend, but any more than that is not necessary for learning. Of course, you can spend more than that once you are experienced enough to manage it, and you have worked with the ads manager, you understand the ad formats, you have creatives that are working. You could even spend as little as $1 a day. I would argue that if your budget is that low, you should probably go do something else before you do that. There's probably better things you could spend your time on at the moment. So at $300 a month, I think then it's worthwhile. Now, a recommendation: don't have any preconceived notions when it comes to Facebook ads A good ad creative can last a shockingly long time. I have run some ads for 5 years straight. Others may only work for a few months or even less. So just, if you think things are one way, it may not be that way. So just be open-minded with what can work. Sometimes when an ad creative seems to go stale, you might want to try duplicating the ad set or even the campaign. Then you might see a reactivation of that ad. If you've tried it a few times, you may even want to come back to it later on. I've heard that has worked for some people. Usually I'm able to get it to reactivate pretty quickly, but I've heard some people even say that they've come back a year, 2 years later and tested them out again and they started to work. I would also recommend to at least understand and learn the ins and outs of things like lookalike audiences or custom audiences. Some Facebook ads experts nowadays are recommending advantage shopping campaigns and saying that we don't actually need to run lookalike audiences anymore. But for those of you that aren't selling typical e-commerce products like maybe SaaS or subscription services or high ticket items, then this might not apply to you. So this brings us to another point, which is you should always be testing specific to your situation and do not take any blanket advice. There is no one size fits all. Always be testing, especially trust your data more than other people's data. Try out recommendations, but trust what really happened in your situation. Don't fall for complicated ad account structure strategies. Facebook seems to respond best to simpler setups. There will always be a proposed method to make your ad account perform a few percent better, but the majority of your results are just going to come from making good, high-quality ads and spending on them appropriately. Now, one point of concern that you should always have: getting your ad account banned. Unfortunately, it is really only a matter of time until your ad account does get banned, so don't be afraid of it. It does absolutely suck, don't get me wrong, but you should kind of be in expectation that it might happen someday, because it almost certainly will. The main things that can cause ad account bans are using other people's intellectual property. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to give any legal advice, but for example, what usually happens is people will make or buy merchandise with a celebrity or use big franchises, like put a Disney symbol on a mug, and then they will try to sell them through Facebook ads. Banned. Another thing that will get you banned pretty easily is making big financial or health claims, saying things like, you're going to make X number of dollars in your first month, or guaranteed to lose 30 pounds. Banned. And then finally, the reason why I say it's probably only a matter of time, you can just do nothing at all. You can just be running ads like normal. You could have been running ads for 4 years straight with no issues and wake up one morning to your ads account banned and client yelling at you. Don't ask me how I know. This usually happens from Meta's automated systems and can be turned around by appealing. You'll usually want to appeal as well as reach out to their chat support if it's working at the time, which half the time it's not. They also usually have a button on there that says phone support, and then that will also just be never enabled. So it's changing all the time. Just check on it, and you will want to try the chat support because they were a lot more helpful than the appeals process. The appeals process never even got back to me. Also, just be aware that whenever you deal with Facebook support, it's truly a situation of like the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. So even if one rep tells you, no, sir, you cannot get your account back, contact them again. A different person tells you a different thing. You're not even tricking them. They just don't know what they're doing most of the time. So one person will think you violated the policy. Another will know you didn't violate the policy. Just contact again. Try to keep getting through. Keep trying. Don't even give up after 3-4 tries. You'd be surprised at how many stories there are of these types of things happening. Another thing to do would be, I would recommend that you add a highly trusted party to your Facebook ads account so that if it's not your ad account that gets banned, but your personal account, you aren't completely locked out. I would also recommend adding two-factor authentication to your account so that hackers have a lot more trouble getting to you, because it is very common that they will hack a person's insecure account and then gain access to the Facebook ads. They will then run a very high amount of Facebook ads to usually something like their own product or just like their own sort of scam. And so you need to be careful with these things. Sometimes they even do it to just random credit card numbers. So in summary, just avoid doing stupid things. Do your best to make your product as appealing as possible. Abandon any preconceived notions. If you think the ad won't work, try it and know. If you think your audience isn't there, you're wrong. Keep making your ads better. If you're not iterating and refreshing your ads, it is only a matter of time until something breaks. Even in that example that I mentioned of one ad working for 5 years, you still need to keep duplicating the ad sets to get that same creative to work. You have to duplicate campaigns. Basically, things in the ad account get stale and you need to refresh them, even though the ad itself is still fine. It's basically like you need to tell Facebook, show it to a new chunk of audience, because when they start showing to a particular target demographic, they don't really show it to all of the target demographic. They show it to a slice. And then when you duplicate, it shows it to a different slice. Duplicate shows it to a different slice. And so they always are trying to not bombard everybody because they want to keep ad inventory fresh. And yes, always be testing. Well, I hope you found some of these points helpful. Please leave a comment if any of them were helpful to you, or if there's anything else that you would have liked to have seen answered. And that's all for today. Thank you.